The file landed on his desk, not with a thud, but with the quiet, deliberate whisper of a closing coffin. It was a single page, printed on paper so fine it felt like solidified silence. This wasn't a proposal. It was a verdict, delivered before the trial had even begun. Across the polished oak of the boardroom table, Arthur Vance, CEO of OmniCorp, smiled. It was a predator's smile, all teeth, no warmth, a finely calibrated instrument of corporate domination. He had swallowed nations smaller than the company David was trying to build. Before we dive into what happens next, if you believe in stories where the underdog doesn't just bark, but bites back, make sure to hit that subscribe button, like this video, and drop a comment below with the word defiance. It tells the algorithm that stories of courage still matter. Now, back to the lion's den. "It's a generous offer, David," Vance said, his voice a low, smooth purr that had dismantled countless rivals. "We absorb your tech. You get a seat on our board. You'll be a king, not just a founder." The air in the room was thick with the scent of money and power, a perfume designed to suffocate idealism. David looked from the single sheet of paper, the acquisition contract, to the man who had authored it. He saw not a partner, but a zookeeper offering a bigger, more comfortable cage. He had spent a decade building Aether, a decentralized communication network designed to be immune to corporate or state control. It was a tool for the people, a digital sanctuary. To OmniCorp, it was just another asset, a loose thread in their global tapestry that needed to be woven in or snipped. David slid the paper back across the table. He didn't push it, he guided it, a deliberate, final movement. "My answer is no." The silence that followed was different. It wasn't the silence of negotiation. It was the sharp, metallic snap of a trap being sprung. Vance's smile didn't fade, but it tightened, the pleasant mask cracking to reveal the steel beneath. "David," he leaned forward, the boardroom lights glinting off his cufflinks, "let me be clearer. This isn't a negotiation. This is a notification. You're either on our ship or you're in its path. And we are a very, very big ship." The threat was clear, wrapped in the silk of corporate jargon. OmniCorp didn't just compete, it consumed. It could outspend him, outlitigate him, and bury Aether under a mountain of regulatory challenges created by its army of lobbyists. David felt the immense pressure, the weight of an empire pressing down on his shoulders, but he straightened, not to fight, but to anchor himself. "Then I guess my people and I had better learn to swim," he replied, his voice quiet but unbroken. Vance blinked, a flicker of genuine surprise in his cold eyes. He had expected fear, negotiation, a counteroffer. He had not expected this, not this calm, unshakable defiance. He stood up, the meeting clearly over. "Be careful, David." Vance's voice was now stripped of its false warmth, leaving only a chilling edge. Idealism doesn't float very well in the real world. The attack, when it came, wasn't a tidal wave. It was a change in the tide, a subtle, chilling current pulling things out to sea. The morning after the meeting, the whispers started. They began not in the press, but in the digital nervous system of the tech world, in encrypted forums, private investor chats, and anonymous developer blogs. A single well-placed post appeared, its language precise, its accusations vague but venomous. Concerns grow over Aether Network's security vulnerabilities. There was no proof, no data, just a seed of doubt planted in fertile ground. Within hours, that seed had sprouted. Key investors, once vocal champions of David's vision, suddenly went silent. Scheduled calls were rescheduled indefinitely. A crucial partnership with a server hosting company was put under review. No one mentioned OmniCorp, no one mentioned Arthur Vance. His name was a ghost haunting the machine, his influence felt but never seen. This wasn't a declaration of war. It was a slow, deliberate poisoning of the well. David's team felt the chill first. His lead engineer, a brilliant woman named Maya, walked into his office, her face pale. "Our core code repository has been flagged for malicious content on 3 separate platforms," she said, her voice tight with frustration. "It's automated harassment, David. Algorithms designed to drown us in red tape. It's like someone's teaching the internet to hate us." David nodded slowly, staring out the window at the sprawling city. He could almost feel Vance's gaze from a distant skyscraper, watching, waiting for the first signs of panic. This was textbook destabilization. Make the project seem unstable, unreliable, a sinking ship, and the crew will abandon it themselves. That evening, a reporter from a major tech journal called. Her questions were sharp, laced with a cynical edge. "We're hearing about a potential talent exodus from your company. Is it true you rejected a significant lifeline from a major player?" The narrative was already written. David, the reckless idealist, was sacrificing his company and his team for his own pride. He was being painted not as a David fighting Goliath, but as a fool who threw the first stone and missed. He spent that night alone in the server room, the hum of the machines a familiar comfort. He wasn't just fighting a corporation anymore. He was fighting a story, an insidious fiction designed to become fact. Every direction offered a form of surrender disguised as a solution. His phone buzzed. It was a text from a venture capitalist who had once promised to follow him into hell. The message was one line: "Take the deal, son. There are no statues for martyrs in Silicon Valley." David put the phone down. He looked at the racks of servers, the blinking lights representing millions of lines of code. His code. Aether was more than a product. It was a promise that communication could be free, that people could connect without being data points on a balance sheet. Vance believed the world ran on power and fear. David had built Aether on a different principle: trust. And now he had to see which was stronger. He wouldn't just fight their story, he would write his own.
The pressure didn't relent. It evolved. It found its way into the real world, moving from the silent corridors of code to the loud, unforgiving court of public opinion. OmniCorp's media division, a hydra of news outlets and influencer networks, began its work. The headlines were subtle at first, then sharp and accusatory. Aether's unproven tech, a security risk for a connected world, read one. Another, more personal, was titled "David versus the Future: How One Founder's Ego is Stalling Progress." They weren't just attacking his company, they were assassinating his character, painting him as a reckless visionary clinging to a failed dream. His team felt the strain. Resumes were quietly updated. Whispers in the break room turned from strategies to exit strategies. The dream was dying, not with a bang, but under the crushing weight of 1,000 manufactured doubts. His advisors, the few who remained, urged caution. "Issue a statement," one said, his voice strained. "Reassure the market. Hint at a future collaboration. We need to stop the bleeding." It was a plea for him to kneel just for a moment to signal his willingness to play the game. But David knew that a single step back would become a full retreat. Instead of calling his lawyers or PR team, he called a small, independent tech conference, a gathering of developers, hackers, and digital idealists who still believed the internet could be a force for liberation, not control. His team warned him against it. "It's a lion's den, David. Vance's people will be there. They'll tear you apart." He went anyway. He took the stage not in a tailored suit, but in a simple black t-shirt. The room was packed, the air thick with skepticism and curiosity. The cameras were rolling, live streaming to the very communities OmniCorp was trying to turn against him. He stepped to the podium, but he didn't use it. He walked to the edge of the stage, closing the distance, making it a conversation, not a speech. "I've been told our technology is a risk. I've been told my refusal to sell is ego, that I'm standing in the way of progress." He paused, letting the words hang in the air. "They are right about one thing. I am standing in the way. He looked directly into the main camera, his eyes burning with a conviction that couldn't be faked. I am standing in the way of a future where your data is a commodity, where your conversations are mined for profit, where your freedom to connect comes with 1,000 hidden strings. They offer you a faster cage, a more comfortable leash, and they call it progress. I call it a prison. A hush fell over the room. This wasn't a defense, it was a declaration. Aether was not built to be sold, it was built to be shared. We have been offered a seat at the table in exchange for the keys to the city. We have been offered wealth for our silence, power for our obedience. He took a breath. To every corporation that believes the future is for sale, I will speak plainly. We are not your asset, we are not your competition, we are the alternative. And we are not going anywhere. The room was silent for a beat. Then two. Then a single person began to clap. Then another. Within seconds, the room erupted, not in polite applause, but in a roar of support. In a control room miles away, Arthur Vance watched the live feed on a massive screen. He didn't speak, he just watched the man who refused to be a variable, the man who was becoming a symbol. The smile was gone, his jaw tightened. "Fine," he whispered to the empty room. "Now we remind him what standing alone really feels like."
The roar from the conference faded, but its echo became a problem Vance couldn't ignore. David hadn't just defended himself, he had drawn a battle line. The hashtag #WeAreTheAlternative began trending, not as a viral tsunami, but as a steady, growing current. David's speech was being clipped, translated, and shared in the digital undergrounds from Sao Paulo to Seoul. He hadn't built an army of users, he was building an army of believers. And belief, Vance knew, was far harder to crush than code. The next phase, therefore, would not be an argument. It would be a lesson in reality. The strike came without warning, a silent, digital blitzkrieg. On a Tuesday morning, the Aether network began to flicker. Latency spiked. Data packets, once fluid, began to lag, then drop entirely. It wasn't a crash, which would have been obvious. It was a slow, agonizing strangulation. Maya and her team worked frantically, their faces illuminated by scrolling lines of error logs. "It's not a brute force attack," she said, her voice strained with a mixture of awe and fury. "It's elegant. They're not breaking the door down, they're poisoning the foundation. They're targeting the core protocols, making the system fundamentally distrust itself." OmniCorp's fingerprints were nowhere to be found, but their shadow loomed over every corrupted line of code. They were using a zero-day exploit, a flaw so new and undocumented it was like a ghost in the machine. It was the kind of weapon a corporation with a nation-state's budget could acquire. The message was brutally clear. We can touch you whenever we want. We can dismantle your dream one bite at a time. The effect was immediate and devastating. Users who had championed Aether for its reliability now faced an unusable platform. The trust David had built his entire vision upon began to erode. Online forums that once sang his praises now filled with frustration and accusations. "Is Aether collapsing?" one user asked. "Did we back the wrong horse?" Vance didn't need to create a negative narrative anymore. David's failing technology was creating it for him. That night, David received a single encrypted email. There was no sender, no subject line. It contained only a link. Clicking it opened a live feed showing Aether's network performance statistics, all plummeting in real time. Below the grim display was a single sentence: "The ship is passing." It was a final chilling offer to climb aboard before being swallowed by the wake. David stood in the darkened server room, the blinking red lights on the racks like 100 accusing eyes. The weight of every user's broken trust, every employee's wavering faith settled on him. His advisors had been right. This was what standing alone really felt like. The cold, empty space of a battlefield after the first volley has struck. But as he stared at the screen, a different feeling began to surface. rising through the exhaustion and the despair. Not fear, not anger. It was clarity. Vance thought David was teaching him a lesson about power, but he was only reminding David why he had started this fight in the first place. This wasn't about technology anymore. It was about the right to exist.
The network was bleeding, and Vance was waiting for the inevitable call for surrender. He expected David to beg for a deal, to salvage the wreckage. What he didn't expect was for David to set the wreckage on fire, for the whole world to see. Instead of hiding the attack or making excuses, David did something that defied all corporate logic. He embraced the wound. Late that night, he called an emergency all-hands meeting. The faces of his team were grim, a mosaic of exhaustion and defeat. They expected him to announce the end. Instead, he walked to a whiteboard and wrote a single word in bold letters: transparency. "They're right," David said, his voice quiet but resonant, cutting through the despair. "Our network is vulnerable. Our foundation is being poisoned, just as they planned." He turned to face them. "They think this is our weakness. They think that by showing us we can be broken, we will break. But they've forgotten who we are. We are not a corporation built on secrets and shadows. We are a community." Then came the order that would be remembered as either an act of genius or of suicide. "Take the zero-day exploit," David commanded Maya, his voice ringing with a newfound clarity. "Document it, analyze it, and then publish it. Publish everything: the attack vectors, the corrupted code, the logs. We're going to open source the problem. We're going to show the world exactly how they are trying to kill us, and we're going to invite the world to help us fight back." It was a radical defiance. In a world where tech companies hide their flaws like state secrets, David was laying his bare. It was an admission of vulnerability so profound it became an act of strength. He wasn't just fighting an attack anymore. He was turning the attack into a rallying cry. Within an hour, the Aether Protocol Defense Initiative was live. It was a raw, unfiltered look at the anatomy of a corporate assassination. David posted a simple message alongside the David dump. "To the powerful, a flaw is a weapon to be used in the dark. To us, it is a problem to be solved in the light. This is not our code to protect alone. It is our shared promise. If you believe in a free and open internet, we need you. This is the fight." The effect was electric. The digital communities that had been filled with doubt now ignited with purpose. Coders, security experts, and digital activists from every continent began descending on the data. They weren't just debugging a network, they were defending an idea. They worked through the night, a decentralized global army united not by a paycheck but by a principle. Arthur Vance had wanted to isolate David. Instead, he had just reminded him and the world that he was never truly alone. In a world of giants, one man refused to play by their rules. He didn't build higher walls, he tore them down and invited the world inside. While others fight for market share, he is fighting for a soul, the soul of the internet. They tried to break his code, but they may have just unleashed a revolution. The story is far from over. If you believe in this fight, if you think that courage can change the world, then help this story reach more people. Like this video, share it with someone who needs to see it, and comment below with what you think will happen next. And if you haven't already, hit that subscribe button and the notification bell so you don't miss a single moment of this unfolding revolution.